If you are listening to this, you are probably already in bed, eyes half closed, waiting for a story that is not too exciting, not too dramatic, and certainly not too fast. This is not a tale of heroes or battles. It is not a story of adventures across oceans filled with danger. Instead, this is the quiet, uneventful story of the potato, a story that takes its time, step by step, moment by moment, without rushing. A story so ordinary, so simple, that it may just help you fall asleep. The potato, as you know, is not a fruit. It is not a grain. It is not even a vegetable in the way a carrot or a cabbage is. It is a tuber. That means it grows quietly underground, slowly forming itself in the soil, while green leaves spread above the surface. In the beginning, long before people in Europe or North America had even heard the word potato, these tubers were growing in the high mountains of South America. The Andes, with their sharp cliffs, thin air, and cold nights, were home to this very humble crop. Imagine, if you will, the scene thousands of years ago. The mountains were quiet. The air was thin and cool. Small communities of people lived in these high places, farming the land carefully, and among the plants they cared for was the potato. Day after day, season after season, the potatoes grew slowly under the soil. There was no rush, no excitement, just the patient work of nature as starch and nutrients gathered inside those tubers. For the people of the Andes, the potato was not boring. It was survival. They discovered that potatoes could grow in places where other crops failed. The nights were too cold for many plants, but the potato continued, quietly, stubbornly. Families learned to plant them, to harvest them, to cook them. They boiled them, baked them, and mashed them. They dried them into something called chuo, so that the potatoes would last through the winter months. It was food that was always there, reliable, dependable, never flashy. Now, as you listen to this, perhaps you feel the same sense of calm that comes with such a dependable food. Imagine the villagers sitting by small fires, sharing simple meals of boiled potatoes, talking in low voices. Before the long Andean night wrapped around them, nothing much happened, just the slow rhythm of life, marked by planting and harvesting, year after year. Time passed. Empires rose in those mountains, such as the great Inca civilization. But even as the Inca built stone roads and temples, the potato remained the same, small, quiet, beneath the ground. When Inca soldiers marched, they carried potatoes with them, dried and light, giving them energy for the long walks through the mountains. But again, this was not dramatic. It was practical, simple, and steady. And then, slowly, the potato began its journey outward. It was not a quick journey. It was not a sudden explosion. It was slow, like the plant itself. In the 16th century, Spanish explorers arrived in South America. They were searching for gold and silver, riches and treasures, and yet, quietly, almost without noticing, they also found potatoes. At first, they did not care much for them. A small, brown tuber hidden under the earth did not seem like treasure, but they brought it back to Europe anyway, almost as an afterthought. When the potato arrived in Spain, people were not sure what to make of it. Some thought it looked strange. Some were afraid it was unhealthy. Some even believed it might be poisonous, because it was related to plants like deadly nightshade. But slowly, as farmers experimented, they saw that potatoes grew well in European soil. Quietly, slowly, year after year, potatoes spread from Spain to Italy, to France, to Germany, to Ireland, and beyond. At first, the potato was not loved. It was treated with suspicion. But over time, people realized that here was a crop that could feed many mouths. It was filling, it was reliable, and in places like Ireland, it became central to people's diets. Families planted fields of potatoes, harvested them, stored them, and ate them day after day. The potato was not glamorous. It was not celebrated. It was simply there, steady and dependable, season after season. As you listen, perhaps your breathing has already slowed. The story itself is slow, moving like the spread of the potato across continents, not rushing, not forcing, just steady. And that is how sleep comes too, little by little, moment by moment. The 17th century came and went. The 18th century followed, and still, the potato continued to grow quietly under the soil, unnoticed by kings and queens, but treasured by the common people. It filled their bowls, filled their stomachs, and filled their lives with the kind of quiet security. The potato did not ask for attention. It did not shine like gold or silver. It was plain, brown, and hidden, and yet it fed millions. Even as wars raged in Europe, the potato was underground, patient, unaffected. Armies marched above, kings argued, and still the tubers swelled beneath the earth, waiting to be pulled out, cooked, and eaten. A boring food, perhaps, but a necessary one. And sometimes, boring is exactly what people need. By the 18th century, the potato had spread to much of Europe, yet it still carried with it a certain sense of suspicion. Some people refused to eat it. They thought it was food for animals, or food for the poor, not something worthy of their tables. Others whispered superstitions that potatoes caused disease, or that they were connected with leprosy. But despite the doubts, the potato continued to grow. It did not argue. It did not demand. It simply lay beneath the ground, waiting patiently for harvest. Farmers who chose to plant potatoes began to notice how dependable they were. Unlike wheat, which could fail in a bad season, potatoes often survived. Even when storms came, or when soil was poor, potatoes still produced something edible. This reliability made them quietly powerful. Year after year, more families turned to potatoes, and little by little, they became part of Europe's daily meals. In France, a man named Antoine Augustin Parmentier became almost obsessed with the potato. He believed it could help feed the nation. To make people less suspicious, he planted fields of potatoes and even guarded them with soldiers, pretending they were valuable. When curious locals saw the guarded fields, they began to wonder if perhaps the potatoes were worth stealing. Slowly, by such tricks, the potato entered French cuisine. But again, there was no sudden drama, just the slow, steady acceptance of a simple tuber. Meanwhile, across the Channel in Ireland, the potato had become more than just a crop. It was life itself. Irish soil, damp and cool, suited potatoes perfectly. Families discovered that with potatoes and a bit of milk, they could survive with enough energy to work, to live, to raise children. Villages depended on this one crop, season after season. Potatoes filled their fields, filled their homes, filled their tables. There was comfort in this sameness, even if it was plain. But as we know, depending on one thing alone can be dangerous. In the 19th century, a terrible blight struck. It spread through the potato fields, blackening the leaves, rotting the tubers. Families who had lived on potatoes for generations suddenly found their food supply destroyed. In Ireland, this became the Great Famine. It was a slow disaster, year after year, with hunger spreading across the land. Many died, many left, sailing to other countries in search of a better life. Even in this tragedy, the potato remained at the center. It was not dramatic in itself, but its absence created suffering. The world saw how deeply people had come to rely on a crop that was once dismissed as strange and suspicious. The potato, boring and brown, had shown its true importance. As Irish families sailed across the Atlantic, they carried their knowledge of potatoes with them. And so, in the 19th century, the potato took firm root in North America. Once again, it was not sudden. It was not fast. It was a quiet spread, farm by farm, town by town. Americans planted potatoes in small plots, then in larger fields. They became part of soups, part of stews, part of daily life. Imagine the quiet kitchens of rural America in those years. Wooden tables, cast iron pots, families gathered at the end of long days, eating boiled potatoes, perhaps with butter, if they were lucky, or with nothing at all, if times were hard. It was not fancy. It was not exciting. But it was filling. It was steady. It was food that asked for nothing, yet gave much. The potato story is not one of kings or warriors. It is one of ordinary people. People who planted. People who harvested. People who cooked. People who ate. Night after night, potatoes steamed in kitchens across the world, giving warmth and comfort. And in this ordinariness, there was a kind of peace. As industrialization spread, cities grew larger. Workers needed cheap, filling food, and the potato was there. French fries, chips, mashed potatoes, all these began to appear. Yet even as the potato was turned into these new forms, it remained simple at its heart. Still brown, still plain, still quiet beneath the soil until harvest time. And so, from the Andes to Europe, from Europe to America, the potato's journey continued. Slow, eventful, without fanfare, without glory, just steady, reliable growth. As you lie in bed, listening to this slow story, perhaps you feel a bit like the potato itself, resting, calm, waiting without hurry. Sleep, like the potato, does not need to be rushed. It comes in its own time, quietly, steadily, while you, too, are fully at rest. By the late 19th century, the potato was no longer unusual. It had become ordinary, and in many ways, invisible. In cities and in villages, in Europe and in America, people simply expected to find potatoes on their tables. They boiled them, fried them, baked them, mashed them. Some sliced them thin and cooked them in oil until crisp. Others left them whole and roasted them in the fire. The potato did not argue about how it was used. It simply waited, patient as always, beneath the soil until it was called upon. In Germany, potatoes became so common that they were served almost every day. A meal without potatoes seemed incomplete. In Britain, fish and chips began to appear, a pairing that would become famous worldwide. In France, cooks turned potatoes into purées and gratins. Each country shaped the potato into its own form, yet the tuber remained unchanged, plain, steady, filling. Meanwhile, in the vast fields of America, potatoes were planted on larger and larger scales. Farmers discovered that potatoes could be harvested by machines, stored in cellars, and shipped by train. What had once been a humble mountain crop was now a global food. And still, it remained boring, dependable, and essential. Consider for a moment how many lives were quietly supported by this crop. Factory workers in crowded cities found energy in potatoes after long shifts. Families on farms filled their bellies with them at the end of long days. Soldiers in distant wars carried them as rations, boiled or dried. And still, the potato did not ask for recognition. It remained underground, silent, until it was needed. The 20th century arrived, and with it, more changes. Processed foods appeared. Potatoes were turned into instant flakes that could be rehydrated with water. They were cut into frozen French fries, stored in freezers, and fried in restaurants around the world. Potato chips, thin and crisp, became snacks sold in bright bags. Yet, at the core, all of these were still the same simple tuber, grown quietly in the soil. As airplanes crossed oceans and radios carried voices, the potato simply continued its slow rhythm, planting, growing, harvesting, eating, over and over, without pause, without drama. People came and went, technology advanced, but the potato remained steady. Even scientists grew curious about the potato. They studied its genetics, its resistance to diseases, its ability to grow in different soils. In laboratories, potatoes were dissected, analyzed, improved. But the plant itself seemed unaware of this attention. It still grew in rows, its leaves above, its tubers below, calm and patient as always. By mid-century, the potato had traveled even further. It became part of diets in Asia, where new recipes welcomed it. In India, Potatoes found their way into curries, spiced and mixed with vegetables. In China, they were stir-fried, boiled, and stewed. Everywhere, the potato adapted, quiet and uncomplaining, to the tastes of different people. Think of how strange it is. A food that began in the Andes Mountains now rests in kitchens across the globe. And yet, if you were to hold one in your hand, it would not seem remarkable. Just a brown tuber, rough on the outside, plain and unimpressive. But hidden inside is the history of centuries, of journeys across oceans, of families who survived on its strength. As the decades passed, the potato became so common that people hardly thought about it anymore. It was there, always, like the background hum of daily life. When someone said, dinner, it might mean potatoes. When someone asked for comfort food, it might be mashed potatoes. The tuber had become part of human existence, woven quietly into the ordinary rhythm of meals. And so, through all these centuries, the potato story remained uneventful. No battles were fought over it. No great monuments were built for it. No epic songs were sung about it. And yet, without it, the world would be very different. Millions might have gone hungry. Millions more might never have survived long winters or poor harvests. The potato, in its silence, had shaped history. As you lie in bed, perhaps your mind drifts with these slow details. The years pass, the centuries pass, and still, the potato waits underground, and changed in its patience. The story does not rush, just as your breathing should not rush. Slowly in, slowly out, steady, calm, boring, safe. By the end of the 20th century, the potato had reached every corner of the world. It was grown in small gardens, in wide fields, and even in greenhouses. Farmers treated it as ordinary. Families treated it as expected. Restaurants served it without much thought. The potato was never rare, never special, always available, always steady. When people looked at a plate, they often noticed the meat, or the sauce, or the garnish. Rarely did they notice the potato. It was there, but it did not demand attention. It filled space quietly. It satisfied hunger quietly. It was background food, reliable, dependable, never dramatic. In supermarkets, bags of potatoes sat in piles. Some were large, some were small, some were red, some were yellow, some were white. But all of them looked ordinary. Shoppers picked them up without excitement, placing them in baskets alongside other groceries. There was no rush, no urgency, just calm, silent, choosing. In fast food restaurants, potatoes were transformed into fries, golden and crisp. People ate them by the handful, dipping them into sauces, rarely pausing to think about where they came from. In diners, potatoes became hash browns, cooked slowly on hot grills. In family kitchens, they became baked potatoes, steaming and soft inside. And in each case, the potato remained humble, letting others take the spotlight. Governments began keeping track of potato harvests, recording numbers in charts and reports. Year after year, the figures rose and fell, but the potato itself did not change. It grew when planted, it rested when harvested. The numbers were only reflections of its quiet cycle. Economists studied those reports, but the potato did not care. It simply continued, patient as ever. Scientists even dreamed of potatoes in space. Experiments were done to see if they could grow beyond Earth, perhaps on other planets or in orbiting stations. And still, the potato remained the same tuber that asked for soil, water, and time. Whether in the mountains of the Andes, or in the laboratories of the future, it waited underground, calm and uneventful. If you imagine a field of potatoes, there is nothing loud about it. Rows of green leaves stretch outward, gently moving in the wind. Beneath them, unseen, the tubers grow slowly, quietly. There is no rush, no noise, no urgency, only patience. A field of potatoes is a picture of calm repetition, season after season. For people, potatoes have become comfort. A bowl of mashed potatoes on a cold night. A plate of fries shared with friends. A baked potato split open with butter. melting inside. These are not grand feasts. They are ordinary meals, steady and filling. They remind us of home, and warmth, of quiet moments. And so, in this way, the potato story continues. It has no dramatic ending. There is no final chapter. The potato keeps growing, keeps feeding, keeps waiting. It has outlasted kings, empires, wars, and inventions. It will likely outlast many more. Its story is not one of speed or excitement. It is one of slowness, of calmness, of steady endurance. As you listen, your mind may drift with the potato's rhythm, slow, eventful, patient, just. As the potato rests beneath the soil, you too may rest beneath your blanket. Just as the potato waits quietly for harvest, you may wait quietly for sleep. There is no rush. Sleep will come, just as surely as potatoes will grow again next season. And when you finally close your eyes, remember that the potato is still there, beneath the ground, silent, steady, patient, exactly as it has always been, and exactly as it will always be. In the 21st century, the potato remains exactly what it has always been. Farmers still plant it in the soil, rain still falls, and sun still shines. Roots still spread, and tubers still form quietly underground. There is no drama in this cycle. It repeats, year after year, century after century, as if time itself moves at the slow pace of potato growth. In modern supermarkets, bright lights shine above endless rows of vegetables. There are exotic fruits, colorful packaging, and frozen meals. And yet, in the corner, there are always bags of potatoes. They do not sparkle. They do not advertise. They simply sit, waiting to be chosen. People walk by, take a bag, place it in their carts, and move on. There is no excitement, no pause. Just calm, routine. Restaurants continue to serve potatoes in many forms. French fries on the side of burgers, mashed potatoes next to meatloaf, potato salad at picnics, hash browns at breakfast, chips in plastic bags. None of these meals are dramatic. They are ordinary. They are the background of daily life. And in this background, the potato has become invisible, but never absent. In homes, potatoes are peeled, sliced, and boiled. They are fried in pans, roasted in ovens, and sometimes left forgotten in baskets until they sprout little green shoots. Even when neglected, the potato waits. It does not hurry. It simply grows its small sprouts, quietly reminding us that it is still alive. Think of how many billions of meals across the world include potatoes. A child in South America eating a boiled potato for lunch. A family in India stirring potatoes into spiced curry. A worker in Europe eating fries on the way home. A student in America opening a bag of potato chips. None of them think deeply about the potato. They simply eat. And the potato fulfills its role. Quietly, steadily, without thanks, without complaint. The potato has no need for fame. It is not like chocolate, with festivals and celebrations. It is not like wine, with rituals and toasts. It is not like gold, hoarded and treasured. The potato simply exists, planted, harvested, eaten, and planted again. A rhythm as boring as it is eternal. Even in science fiction, the potato appears. Writers imagine astronauts growing potatoes on Mars, just as they grow on Earth. The potato, they believe, could feed explorers on other planets. And yet, even in this vision of the future, the potato does not change. It remains the same silent tuber, resting underground, waiting for harvest. If you were to hold a potato in your hand, it would feel solid, rough, and ordinary. Not much to look at, not much to think about. And yet, within it lies centuries of history, survival, migration, and sustenance. But the potato does not tell its story loudly. It tells it slowly, softly, through the countless meals it has provided. And so, as this story comes to an end, there is no grand conclusion. The potato has no ending. It continues, as it always has, and as it always will. Its history is not one of climax, but of continuation. A potato planted today will grow just as one did centuries ago. Its leaves will rise above the soil. Its tubers will swell below. Someone will harvest it, cook it, and eat it. Then the cycle will begin again. As you listen to this final part, perhaps your eyelids grow heavy, perhaps your breathing slows. The potato story is long, but it is not exciting. It is steady, calming, and uneventful, and that is its gift. Just as the potato provides quiet nourishment, its story provides quiet rest. So now, let the potato rest in the soil, and let yourself rest in your bed. The world outside can wait. Tomorrow will come, as it always does. Potatoes will grow, as they always do, and you will sleep, as you always must. Good night.